Welcome back to another episode of the Cover 2 podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lawson Turner, and Minnesota survives. They survived Game 4, they avoid the sweep, and force Game 5 behind a two fantastic games between Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns. I thought Cat played by far his best game of the series. Now, he did end up fouling out, and I was live tweeting the game on the Cover 2 podcast Twitter, and it got to a point where in the first half I'm like, Cat doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And he hasn't looked like he's known what he's been doing all series long. But then 20 points in the second half. He was fantastic. 9 for 13 overall from the floor. 4 for 5 from 3. Now he did, like I mentioned, foul out of the game. But it didn't matter because every stop they needed, Minnesota got. And every bucket that needed to be made in the second half, and especially down the stretch when Dallas, it looked like they were creeping, and it looked like this was going to be for damn near the fourth consecutive game that Minnesota has the lead in the fourth, and Dallas steals the game away. Anthony Edwards would not be denied as he would score 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 9 assists. Like I mentioned, I thought it was fantastic. He was flat out fantastic, not just on the offensive end, but on the defensive end. It looked like later on in the game, he really took that. He took the assignment of guarding Luka, and when you look at a box score perspective, Luka still had a fantastic game. He still had a fantastic game in 28 points, 15 rebounds, which ties up playoff career high, and 10 assists. He was very inefficient, 7 of 21, 4 for 11 from three. And when the game looked like it was getting out of hand with under a minute to go, he hit one of the craziest and one threes I've seen. It was it was insane, and he missed the free throw that would have cut it to a 3-point game in which maybe something else happens, and who knows? It would have been a crazy. I think it would have cut it to three. It was either three or two. I cannot remember which one off the top. It it would have cut it. It would have cut it to a 2-point game with 13.2 seconds to go, and a it would have forced Minnesota, that's been a relatively good free throw shooting team, to kind of a shaky spot. They took 25 free throws and only made 16 of them. That's 64%. Maybe they go make one, miss one again in Dallas somehow. Luka scores another miraculous three, but it would not be like I mentioned, as Minnesota takes a 105 to 100 win in Game 4 to avoid the sweep and force a Game 5 that will be later tonight in Minnesota. I expect both teams to come out excellent again, but before I give a preview and a prediction as to who I think is going to win tonight, let's continue back to Tuesday night's game. Mike Conley, fantastic game again. Really on both. He's really shown me that he's been that consistent. He's been the consistent veteran that this team's needed. Not just for the regular season, but for the postseason. He's been fantastic over the last 3 games in this series, and Tuesday was nothing short of fantastic. 14 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, and 4 steals. It's great when you see a veteran like that be so engaged on the defensive end, tracking loose balls, getting deflections and steals. And I thought Rudy Gobert played a good game. 13 points, 10 rebounds. Now, at halftime, Ant, Cat, and Rudy all had 3 fouls, and you don't want to see, especially a key piece to your team, with 3 fouls in the first half. But it didn't matter due to Minnesota holding on to the lead. Let's go to Dallas. I already got to Luka, 28 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. Very, very inefficient. But let's dive into his other co-star. I thought this was Kyrie's worst game of the entire playoffs. 16 points, 4 assists, and 6 of 18 and 1 for 6 from the floor. we know Kyrie's better than this, and that's what I felt this game was. I thought this game was a hiccup game. PJ Washington, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 for 13. Like, all the key pieces for Dallas, they were just inefficient. And they were still in it late and had really good opportunities down the stretch to cut it to a one-score game or tie or take the lead. But Minnesota wasn't going to be denied. Now, the biggest team stat that shocked me, Dallas won the turnover battle, 13 turnovers to 14 for Minnesota. Minnesota generated 15 points off those 13 Dallas Maverick turnovers. The Dallas Mavericks scored 30 points off those 14 turnovers. 30. When you win the turnover battle by one, and then double the points off the turnovers from the other team, you should win these games. Dallas won the 3-point battle by 9 makes, but they lost the free throw battle attempts, even though they made 2 more, and they shot almost 11% lower than what Minnesota did. Minnesota for the game shot 52.7% from the floor, and Dallas shot only 42%. And we know they're a fantastic offensive team and a really good defensive team. So to dive into tonight's game, who do I think wins Game 5? I think Game 4 was a wake-up call for Luka and Kyrie that, like, well, yes, we're up 3-0. Yes, no one's ever come back from down 0-3 before, but let's not leave it up to chance in a Game 6, even though it's at home. Let's go into Minnesota and end this tonight. I expect a Luka, maybe not a master class, but could I see him and Kyrie go for, the high 50s to potentially in the 60s combined? Absolutely. I think that this is a game where Kyrie is going to be now. He is what Mike Conley is for Minnesota, but for Dallas. Not not play style the same, but he's the old guy on the roster. He's not the most tenured guy there, but he's the guy with the most playoff experience and knows how to close series. Last on Tuesday, that was his first series clinching game in which he lost. And I don't think Kyrie and will let excuse me, I don't think Kyrie is going to let the Mavs or Luka go back to Dallas with anything less than, all right, guys, get ready for next Thursday because we're going to the NBA Finals. I think that they go into Minnesota and they beat Minnesota and send them home on their home floor. And I can't wait for this game. It's going to be awesome. Now, I will say one thing. If Minnesota can force a game 6, I think it's going to be a hell of a story because then it's one game away from, oh shit, the best defensive team in the NBA all year long, getting a game 7 at home, and we know what their superstar is capable of, exploding for a 40 point performance, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a don't leave it up to chance, Dallas. Don't play with your food. Just go into Minnesota tonight and end it, and you'll play Boston on Thursday. Next Thursday. Well, that's all I have for you guys in this episode of the Cover 2 Podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at the Cover 2 Pod 26. Link will also be in the description to make it a little bit easier to find. Thank Like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'm your host, Lawson Turner, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.